and this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Please consult with a qualified financial professional for advice specific to your situation. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast producers or sponsors. We make no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy or completeness of the content. Hi, my name is Bella Carrasco, and helping others feel more comfortable about investing brings a huge smile to my face. After working in the private equity, family office, and securities markets for nearly a decade, I pulled together my resources to interview experts in each area of the due diligence process and answer how do you know questions when considering your future financial safety. We go deep into questions about many phases of the investment process, with the goal of helping you go from practice to game time confidently. This is the How Do You Know podcast. Today we are joined by Sam Silverman. And Sam, your background has always been fascinating because you started in the tech world, started investing in single-family rentals, quickly realized there was a better way to achieve your goals, which led you to pivot to investing as an LP in over 75 deals now. But your story doesn't stop there. You continued your sales career until encountering the challenge of either walking away from a safe career or focusing on your own business full time. So thank you for your time today. Want to start with your why, because your story of what gave you the confidence to make that leap is empowering, and I know will resonate with so many listening. So why is community important?
Yeah, so I think community matters a lot, right? When I first started, you really don't know what you don't know, and you don't really know what else is out there. So, for example, like when I first got out of school and started in tech, right? I'm like, oh, okay, if I can make 100 grand a year, that'd be really great, right? And then you see, okay, this is now possible to make $200,000 a year, $400,000 a year, $1 million a year, and then you start seeing, okay, people are making this kind of money, but they're doing it in different ways, and in ways in which give you the freedom and optionality to go do what you want. I think for me personally, at the heart of everything I've done has always been freedom, right? Like when you look at the optionality of doing what you want, when you want, where you want, with who you want, and working on things that actually excite you. Like I think the world collectively is a better place when people working on projects that actually excite them, they're passionate about. I think to get there, you have to go make some money first. So for me, like I knew I wanted to work for myself. I had no clue what I wanted to go do. So I went into sales. And from there, I'm like, let me go make as much money as possible while I go figure out what it is that I want to go do. And then, quickly got into real estate, got into private equity deals, got into community. And I think all of it at the root is being able to go have control over your time and what you choose to go work on and what you can say no to as well.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think there's so many people that think that there's only one way to get to this work optionality lifestyle, but I'm glad that you pointed out that there's several different ways to do that. And I know that along the way, people probably come up with excuses as well. So what do you say to people who complain about not having enough time or money to join a community?
So whether you're in a community or not, I think there's so much free education out there, right? I think the big value of community is the implementation of it, right? Like everything we teach in our community, you can go online and find, right? You'll spend a while digging through YouTube, digging through articles, you have to go piece it together, but all the information that we share and other communities share is very accessible, right? In different ways. So I think what you're really getting is the access to people, and you're getting the access to implementation of it, right? Information is free everywhere. If you're a rationale, I don't have money to go do something, there is like you can get a free master's degree on YouTube if you spend enough time doing it, right? You can go listen
Yeah.
to podcasts like this, right? I think the gap a lot of people have is that they spend all this time consuming, right? And in turn, they feel like they're making progress, which consuming at first is important, but oftentimes taking action outweighs that in a massive, massive way. Like people get in this trap, right? And we've all been guilty of it, myself included, of you spend dozens of hours on YouTube, you spend dozens of hours on podcasts, you read all these books, you listen to all these webinars, and in turn, you feel like you made all this progress. But in turn, right, in actuality, you've done nothing. Or you built a base, but that base doesn't matter if you don't go do anything with it. So what I'd say is that being around people who give you exposure to what's possible, to having people you can go partner with, do deals with, who are kind of working toward that same path as yourself, is I think oftentimes who you're around really dictates how you think and what you view as possible. So for example, kind of going back to what I first mentioned, in the corporate world, where I first realized, okay, I can make more and more and more money because I saw people doing it, but I also saw how they lived, right? And I'm like, I don't want to be 50 plus years old working this desk job and just looking like the life is sucked out of you, right? So there's, yes, the money piece is important, and it's a huge root of why we drive a lot of these things, but in turn, how you make the money and how your life looks like around that is extremely important as well. And I think being around people who are achieving in all of those areas, right, in terms of financially, in terms of time, in terms of location, in terms of relationships, in terms of like health and fitness, in terms of traveling, right? You want to be able to be around people who have all those things that you're working towards. At times, I think we have these quote unquote mentors, people you look up to that may have like one of these areas nailed, right? They may figure out how to go run a business and make a few $1,000,000 a year. That's awesome. But they're miserable in every other area of life. Like, I don't want to emulate that person. So finding
Right.
people who have nailed it in a way that you want to, right? Maybe you care about growth more than anything else. That person's great to go follow for you. Awesome. But if you care about having like a balance, right? Finding people who have achieved that balance is crucial.
I always say you are the top 5 people that you surround yourself with. So take a look at who that is for you, and you'll probably see what your future will look like. And if you're not liking what you're seeing, then find a new top group of 5, which then leads me to my next question, which is like, okay, great. Maybe I'm buying into this community thing. Where do you even find these types of groups? Are there any keywords to search when you're going in Google or YouTube or any AI software that you might use?
I look at it a different way almost, right? Like I've found a lot of the communities through referrals, through
Mm,
YouTube, through podcasts, right? Like I think I spent $45,000 last year on education and communities. This year I think I'll spend more.
mm-hmm,
And I'm in, I think, 5 different ones right now. And the reason is just that each of them solve for different things. So, for example, right, one group may really solve for how do I go scale a business, right? One group may solve for how do I go be more intentional about how I actually live my life and my time, my systems, right? Like it depends on what you want to go solve for. So, what I'd say is that probably the easiest way is finding people who are living a certain way and doing a certain thing that you want to go do and ask them for referrals around it, right? I think that's the best way of doing it is there's a lot of good and also a lot of bad in the kind of community educational type world too. And um, having people who have been there in certain groups or in certain circles and getting feedback from them is honestly the easiest way.
no matter what you're doing, having someone that's already lived and breathed whatever you're trying to do is a lot more comforting when you're trying to step into it, because these people are ultimately trying to sell you on something. So they might not be uncovering what it truly is like to be in a group. So having someone who's can vouch for a particular community is certainly helpful. What are top 3 questions people should ask when assessing if a group is a good fit to what they're looking for?
So I think of this as like when I was in college, I studied marketing, and in college, which I have very strong views on, in college, like at times you get teachers who fall into 2 buckets, right? Those who teach because they've done a lot and want to give back, and those who teach because they didn't have the courage to do or they couldn't do. And oftentimes you end up with teachers in the latter category because let's be honest, being a teacher is really not a great job. Right? My mom's a teacher for years. Like the work she put into it and the amount of money she got out of it, it's not super appealing, right? Like there's a level of gratification from it, but it's a tough job. So in turn, it doesn't always attract the best people. Like it's not a glorified role in terms of what you're doing. So when you kind of look at the people who are teaching at times, you want to find people who have really done what it is that they can go do, and people you feel as though can actually pass on that message really well. So, for example, in my college, I was in studying marketing. I took an entrepreneurship class, and my teacher had a PhD, which means he went to school, he studied, he got good enough grades to go pass. He had never worked for anyone outside the education system, and he had never actually started a
Mm.
company. And he was teaching entrepreneurship. So I don't want to pay people like that ever again for education. So you want to find people who have both done and you feel as though confident they can go do. Another example of that is my background's in sales. And oftentimes there's 2 paths you go in sales, right? If you're doing well. One is you go sell bigger deals, right? You stay a individual contributor, or 2, you start leading teams. And at times people think there's a lot of crossover in both those areas. There's not. I know a lot of friends who are $1,000,000 a year earners in sales who are unbelievable sellers that if they had to go lead people, it would be a nightmare, right? I think it's similar in the business world where certain people have accomplished certain things, but are you confident they can go actually pass the message along to you in a way that is digestible, understandable, they're patient, right? So I'd say you have to want to go find people that check the boxes of yes, they can do and have done and are likely still doing, preferably, and you feel confident they can go break those complex things down in a simple way and foster an environment that they can actually help pass on that message to you in a way that is digestible to your learning and how you digest information. Because you and I could both be really good at something, but we process information differently. So you want to find somebody you feel as though can align to how you best learn and how you best feel supported. So there's not like a one right answer for it. It's more so figuring out what's best for you personally and how you learn, what type of environment you want to be in, etc.
I want to highlight, bold, underline what you just said because I am a strong believer in actions are greater than words. So I can talk all day that I'm a professional golfer. I've watched thousands of hours of YouTube, but until I can prove that to someone, like that, it's pretty much meaningless. So the analogies that you just gave are such a good example of that. But in terms of the other side of the coin, are there any questions that you ask people when they're evaluating to join your community?
I think the biggest thing we want to see is that people who will actually take action, right? There's people who have at least tried themselves so far. Like if you look at the ideal client or ideal person who comes into the community, it's someone who has taken action in terms of they've done the research, right? They know they want to go accomplish something with like a meaningful why behind it. And they've likely tried and gotten stuck in a certain area, whether it be they had a company under contract and they didn't know what to go do next, or whether they, got the LOI stage of a deal and it fell through, right? Whether they got a deal under contract and couldn't raise the money. So we want to see things like that where people who have already taken action in a big way that we then know, hey, if we go do what we do and help support you, the likelihood of you doing something positive is much higher, right? So I think that's kind of the ideal profile of person. Um, we see a lot of people from tech, kind of some of my background as well, who are like, hey, I figured out how to go make, two, three, four, $500,000 a year, but I don't like my job. My earnings are
Yeah.
dependent on the company quota they give me. There are changes going on that are out of my control, right? I have no ownership in what I'm doing. So we like seeing people as well who have like some level of competency in their background prior, because we know that likely should translate to a good likelihood of success for them elsewhere too. Right? If someone's managed 50-person teams in the sales org, I bet that with the right help and support, they can go buy a company or they can go buy real estate, right? Or if someone who has been a CMO somewhere or an operations leader, right? Like I'd bet on those people to go figure things out, or a finance manager, right? They have those competencies. They can go leverage that skill set to go do something else now as well.
Ultimately, it's up to you to take action and do the dang thing. So, transitioning from evaluating communities and say, okay, now I'm someone who's in a community, how can I make the most out of my networking opportunities when I'm actually in the group?
So whether in a group or not, like just in your general life, the more you tell people what you're doing and what you're looking for, the easier it becomes to go find that. Like for example, one of our students who recently bought an HVAC company, I think he's closing another one here soon too, at an incredible basis. And for him, like his path was, let me go tell every single person I know what I'm looking for and what I'm doing. And the reason is that people want to go help you naturally, right? They want to go be involved. They want to go see someone else do well. And if they have no clue what you want to go do, right? Say, for example, you, Bella, if you're looking to go buy a deal that looks like this or company looks like that, and no one has any clue, they go stumble into that, how can they ever go let you know? How can they ever go share it with you? So the more people that know what you're doing, the better. So I'd say being super active in terms of sharing what you're doing. I'd say if you're in a group, like having conversations, reaching out to folks as well. And also what you'll realize too is that no group gets 100% people in the community to go show up in every call. And in turn, if you
Yeah.
have prep questions in that call, most people don't, you'll get full advantage of group coaching calls of support, because most communities are built off of testimonials and referrals. So if you're taking action and you're showing like, hey, we're getting stuff done, the likelihood of you getting massive support is very, very, very high, at least in my world. And because we want to see if someone's doing that, let's help support them however we can so they can go win, but also in turn, it helps us win, right? Like it's a very mutual win-win scenario where we want to see people take action in a big way. and they get more support than others because they actually ask for it. They actually raise their hand. They do the work ahead of time so that it's easier to go help someone.
I have countless examples for myself and for other people when it's amazing what happens when you just put something out into the universe and what you get back. It amazes me every single time, but I think that's a huge point. What about mistakes? Are there any common mistakes people make when joining a group?
I think it's really important to be intentional of what you want to get out of it, right? Like if you are having an end in mind of what you want to get out of it, right? If you're joining a community for a network, understanding who's in the network and are they valuable to you? If you're joining a community to learn an actual skill, right? Understanding, does this community and education support actually help me accomplish that skill or learn that skill? But if you're joining it for partnerships or connections, like do they have those connections there? What I'd say is like be really intentional with what you want to get out of it. And some people just join for they need an extra push to do something, right? So it really depends on, there's no right or wrong answer, but I'd say understanding what the intent behind what you want to accomplish and making sure it aligns to the intention of the community or who's in there or what's provided.
And to avoid getting into a wrong group, has anyone shared any stories with you around why they were upset with how a community went for them and maybe why they left and sought out a different group?
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced myself too, right? If like I've paid for communities that I'm like,
Oh,
I
that's
probably
true.
shouldn't have done that. And I'd say so there are ones that I joined for, say, networking purposes. And if you're looking for a very specific thing, right, depending on where you are in business, when you're first starting out, you talk to everyone, right? Everyone is a prospect for you. As you start progressing and you start having more things on your plate, you get narrower, narrower, narrower in scope. So in turn, who is actually valuable to you as a connection can shrink because we're looking for very specific things, right? So once you kind of have what you're looking for solved for, your scope gets very narrow. So if you're looking for those certain things and you join a community looking for that and it's actually not there, that becomes tougher to go deal with. So what I would just say is like, again, end in mind, understand what it is, ask for examples, right, of those things too.
It's like if you're trying to get from Texas to Florida, you want to know what your route will be to get there. Otherwise, you'll
Right.
probably be taking the most inefficient route possible. So having an end in mind is very helpful to make the most out of the community.
Hi, I want to interrupt for a quick second because I am a big believer in emulating off of who you want to be. And I've gone through Christopher's program at Wealth Ops where he truly gives you the education you need to help you manage wealth like a microfamily office. I encourage you to take a second to read his article or visit his website at wealthops.io that will be linked as well. Okay, thanks. Back to it.
What values do you believe are most important for maintaining a strong community culture?
I think transparency is always big, right? Of like, there's things that if you look at, like, we're a super small startup, right? Like this went from being a scrappy business that I built by accident to now making more of an actual company. So like there's a lot of bumps in the road and kind of learning curves. So I think just being super transparent as to what you're working through, what you're working on, what timelines are for things. And again, just like bringing good people to go help support as well, I think is really important too, right? Like I think something we've done really well that I take a lot of pride into is like we have really quality coaches there. Like for me, it's also like awareness too, right? For me, like there's a few things I'm pretty good at. There's a lot of things that people are way better at than myself. So in turn, like if I can't best help support them in a certain area, it's having access to those people who can and bring them into the equation. So I'd say it's bringing the right people to help support in the right areas, right? And kind of helping have a more holistic view of how people actually get things done.
Yeah. As someone who's a community member, that's something that I would value a lot. So I'm sure it doesn't go unspoken for. I also wanted to get a sense for your experience as an LP. Like we started off by saying you've been in over 75 plus deals. So I'm always curious, what's your worst LP story?
Oh, there are definitely a few. So I think as an LP, and I kind of started out in that way too. I think I got into like 20 or so deals before I realized I can go be more on the active side. And in turn, you get a really good idea for what you do and don't want, right? Because again, there's two sides to it, right? One is how the operator sponsor communicates the experience they give you, right? And two is how the actual deal performs, right? So I'd say I've had deals that have done well on both sides. I've had deals that have done well on one of the two sides. I've had deals that have not been solid neither, right? And I think what I'd say now is that before I used to do smaller checks in a lot of deals, I've actually gone much bigger checks in fewer deals as of late in terms of like keeping track of things, right? If you're going to do 75 deals, you're going to have things go wrong. Like no matter what law of averages, like you can't beat that. So I view it as like a collective portfolio that's done well overall, but on an individual basis, some good, some less so. And it's important to, I think, just depending on what level of simplicity you want in your life too, right?
Yeah.
And I'd rather go write fewer checks a year and be more deeply involved with the groups I partner with versus going super wide. So it's helped my life in simplicity and deep relationships.
I'm sure it's easier during tax season too, less K1s and
Yeah.
1099s. Do you
Yeah.
have any non-negotiables when partnering?
So a really simple way I look at it, I manage my mom's full investment portfolio for her. And whatever shortcoming there is at my pocket, right? When she actually finally retires, if she ever does. And I'm pushing her to. But if like I talk to someone and my gut reaction is I would want my mom's like money there, the
Yeah.
answer is absolutely not. Right. So like all the numbers you can look at, all the things, so the references, like if you talk to someone and you don't feel good about it in terms of like gut instinct, like run away. There's so many deals to invest into, there's so many opportunities you can go be a part of, is that being patient to go find the right people that you want to work with is most important of anything else. So there's no like rule of thumb for it, or there's no number to go look at, but I'd say have a good instinct about that person. That goes a long way. And also, I'd say every projection you look at ever is wrong. Like
Yeah.
every single one. You just want them to be wrong in the right direction, right? Like they're very rarely exactly right. I've done 75 deals now. Not one deal has the exact projection. And it's just you want to make sure that there's buffer room, there are margin of error, right? And that the assumptions are reasonable in certain ways, and you have confidence that that person can go, or that group can go deliver on them. I think a big thing I look for as well is just social credibility, right? I think skin in the game cash wise matters. It actually matters to me less so, right? Rather than there's a bigger brand where if they do something unethical, if they don't do something the right way, right, that dollar they lost is worth way more than long term the dollar they invested.
Right. Yeah, it's always been crazy to me how much instinct matters. Like there could be great returns, great margin of error, this, that, and whatever. The numbers can be great. But there's something in my gut that says like, I don't know, something doesn't feel right. And I would definitely encourage people to listen to that because for whatever reason, it could actually save you. Would you be able to just briefly outline what you do in your DD process?
Yeah, so I think again, first really starts with the sponsor, right? Understanding who they are, what their background is, what they've done previously, right? So I think the going deep as to the sponsor, right? References that have worked with them, understanding what types of deals they primarily do, right? The performance of those deals, looking at see what their reporting looks like, right? Just getting a good feel for kind of who they are as people, I think matters a lot. I think next, understanding like, does this deal itself line up with my intention? So, for example, if you're 60 years old and you're living off your income, right, from your investments, and this is a venture capital type play, right, that's going to be a boom or bust, 10x or zero with no cash flow along the way, probably investing there isn't the right decision for you, right? So, it's understanding, does this align to the outcome I want to go have, right, the risk profile I have? I think next, understanding too, like how are the sponsors paid? So I think it's a really big thing too, is understanding what the fee structures are, where the risk lies. So for example, if they give you very, very rich terms, but they charge massive fees, that actually de-risks it for them because they quote unquote guarantee their compensation for doing the transaction itself for some performance. So what you want to see is in line incentives. I'd rather see lower splits towards the investor and lower fees in a lot of deals too, because if they perform well, they can make more. If not, they make less, right? So kind of understanding all the whole picture and execution risk of it. And I'd say lastly, like what does the macro environment say for the opportunity itself, right? Like, is the right time to invest in this asset class, this market, this type of company, right? So they're kind of understanding where the bigger macro environment is pushing that direction as well.
Well said. Well, Sam, thank you. I just want to end with a quick 3 questions. First, I am obsessed with food, so always have to ask, what is your favorite restaurant?
Ooh, I think the favorite restaurant I've ever been to, or at least in the last while, was Jungsik in New York, which is a Korean
Ooh,
style omakase, which was
interesting.
awesome. Yeah, all my favorite places are sushi, Asian food of some kind, and usually like an omakase type style.
Yeah. What is that famous one that everyone always goes to? I can't remember now. Oh well, it'll come to me later. Second question, what is your favorite way to stay up to date on the news?
Probably Twitter. Twitter's
Mm.
big, and then I listen to a lot of newsletters. Um, I used to listen to a lot of All In, but that's kind of gotten a little too political, right? And a lot of wrong predictions in there, but they used to be pretty solid. I'd say yeah, podcasts, newsletters, Twitter is most of it. The news will never be on in my house.
I guess All In isn't the same after Sachs left.
That's fair.
Last question, what would you invest in right now if it's not your business?
Very bullish on things that won't be impacted a ton with AI, right? So like right now, and again, this is my company, but there's a reason I'm kind of like parking a lot of capital into it. Is right now we're doing paving roll up. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
looking at accounting companies, right? I think things won't be impacted a ton by AI, and they're like very, very necessary. I think offshore talent, right, if done well, can be really good too. I don't want to go own and operate a business like that. It's tough, but I think if done right, it can be really good. What else? What else? I actually have 2 friends now who are selling pretty heavily on Bitcoin. I'm kind of understanding that more so right now too, which has been interesting to go learn about as someone who's never owned a stock, never, besides like my company stock plan, who has never invested in anything like that at all before too. So I'm getting more understanding of that has been super helpful.
Yeah, I bet. And Bitcoin is very hard to understand.
Yeah, I think what was honestly super helpful for me, and like this is someone coming from someone who knows nothing about it, is finite resource, right? They're not creating more of it,
Yeah.
right? You can't go print more, which when you look at it relative to $1 makes a lot of sense. And honestly, there's a chart too that was pretty cool. They showed me of like, this is what it buys in terms of relative Bitcoin to pricing of commodities, right? Like a house or a
Mm-hmm.
car, right? Like how that table swung. So still learning about it, but I think kind of having your money spread out in other places too is helpful.
Yep. And just knowing that if it all goes away, you have to be careful. You have to be okay with that.
For sure. For sure. And also too, I like debt right now a lot as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like we invest in a lot of debt just like personally in terms of yield. And there's people who are definitely short on liquidity. So I think like having capital for debt is very, very valuable. And I say lastly too, just like being patient, like having cash on hand. Never be mad you have cash on hand. Right? Like being patient and kind of investing the right way. So part of it too is just like a money market account or treasuries for a period of time. So I think better to go place it. Like don't go rush placing capital because it's burning a hole in your pocket.
Such a good point too. I know it can feel a little antsy, like you're not making best use of your cash, but who knows what will happen in the next 6, 12, 18 months. It doesn't seem to be very solid, so might be a nice time to hold some cash.
There you go.
Well, Sam, thank you again. Why and how should people reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm super active on LinkedIn. So Sam Silverman on there. We now have a new YouTube channel, so Sam Silverman Official on YouTube. We'll be posting a lot of content there, but those are probably the best 2 places for us.
Perfect. Well, I hope people feel more inspired to join community and realize its importance. Until next time, adios. If you are ever interested in a recap with the main points discussed throughout the podcast episode, check out the Q&A series because we dig deeper into the concepts discussed, and you can follow along on YouTube if that's preferred. If you find any value in the show and want to support it, it would be awesome if you texted someone right now about it. You can say you have a podcast recommendation that you think they should listen to and then ask them to get back to you with their thoughts. Anything helps, and I really rely on the amazing investors like you to spread the word. Thank you so much for listening, and please feel free to reach out at any time.